to our reception here and gallery talk, and thanks for coming. The artist that we have here on display is Matt Lively, who is based in around Richmond area, and he does a lot of work in a lot of different media, collaborating with people and working on murals and doing a whole variety of things that I'm sure he'll talk to us about. And there's a lot, there's several different mediums represented here, and even different styles represented here, so we can find out some more things about that. So he works teaching classes at the Virginia Museum of Fine Art, which some of you, I'm sure, have been to in Richmond. Teaching some classes. I'm not sure what classes you teach.
Painting.
Painting, okay. So he teaches there, and I guess we got in contact because of being in shows, being in the same shows together.
Yep.
And a couple of mutual acquaintances. And so I contacted him and asked him if he would share his work with us, and he agreed. And so please just welcome him along with me with a little round of applause. Thank you.
I would like to say I saw your work and wanted to meet you, and I went and found you, and that's how I met you. Because they had this ballpoint pen drawing that was, I just thought was really cool at the Radius 250 show, which you won. I don't know if they know that. They won the big award. And so this show was put together kind of, I didn't know what this show was going to be. I didn't know exactly what the space looked like. I had a couple of photographs of it, and I didn't know, like I do murals, so there's site specific, but without having been to this space, I didn't know what to put here. So it became kind of this accidental retrospective show, but without having all the mediums that I do represented. So that's why it looks like kind of a crazy person might have done all the stuff, because they're totally different worlds. This is completely different from that, but they're the same dude that does them. And I guess the best way to explain that would be to start at the beginning real quick, and then I'll move quickly forward to how I arrived at these places. When I was really young, believe it or not, my first word was Batman. And which is impressive because it's a 2-syllable word, which I think most people's are like ball or dad or something like that. But mine was Batman, because my mom would park me in front of the TV and I would watch that old Batman show. And I got the Batman figures, you know, the tall ones, and I played with these miniatures. And I liked miniatures at the time when I was a kid, but I also liked miniatures later when I was an adult, because it made me feel like I did when I was a kid. So I made miniatures for movies, stop motion movies and things like this. And then since I knew how to do it, I would make miniatures in order to set up my own still lives for drawings or paintings. But making the miniatures got me into sculpture and the idea of building things, since I had a head start about Is she okay? Okay, good. Okay, good. I got into sculpture, so when I went to when high school, I was already drawing, I was already painting, and I was into sculpture. My art teacher in high school suggested that I go to school for sculpture. So I went to school for sculpture. It didn't matter. I could do painting, drawing, or whatever, but sculpture offered the opportunities to learn how to use tools, learn how to weld, learn how to do carpentry stuff, so that if I didn't end up being an artist, I could do something else. I could be a welder or whatever. So by this time I was using all different media, and I was interested in all of it. It wasn't like I was a painter. I wanted to be just a painter, because I got bored really easily, and I still today shift gears all the time. You know, in the morning I'll do paintings, but in the afternoon I'll work on a movie project which involves miniatures, and learning how to use Photoshop to make two-dimensional things move. I might go back to using paintings, doing paintings in the afternoon, and then shift back and forth. All right, instead of doing that, I'm going this way, right? When I got out of college, sculpture major, it's hard to sell sculptures, right? Because you can get into making public sculptures, but you have to be able to talk someone into doing it. You can't just build a big monument in your backyard or behind your apartment and then shop it around and hope that someone gives you a bunch of money for it. So there was 4 times as many walls as there were floors, so I thought it would be better to be a painter because there's literally more real estate to sell stuff. I didn't have any money when I got out of school, so I went to find alternates to art materials, and I worked with tar. Tar thins with mineral spirits. It's like roofing tar, you know, the stuff that you might patch your roof with. And the cleanup was mineral spirits, but the cleanup with oil paint was also mineral spirits. So the 22-year-old, not very smart me thought they were the same. So I used tar, and it worked really well, and it was a big bucket for like $8, and it would last months. And I did all my paintings early on with tar, and it was accidentally kind of a unique look. No one knew what material it was, and I didn't tell anybody what material it was because at the time I thought that it wasn't archival and I might somehow get in trouble for using material that wouldn't work. Then I went to the High Museum down in Atlanta and saw that there was a painting there done in the 40s that was tar. So I thought, oh, if it's good enough for this guy, it's good enough for me. So then I told people it was tar, and they liked it even more. You know, so I started getting these shows, and then when I had the shows, I could sell paintings, and then I bought paint. So then I started putting color in my work. These guys are fairly recent. They're after I had been an artist for 25 years. That year 25 seemed to be like a anniversary year or something, like 25 and 50 and like that. So I was thinking back to my career, people that helped me. So I contacted all the artists that had helped me over the years and asked them if I could do a painting of their studio and then have the show. So that's what I did. This middle one is mine. That was kind of the practice one. I work in a 150-year-old barn, and that is the barn. The one down there of the typewriter was actually just to try to see if something worked. I did a drawing with the tar of a typewriter and then tried to clean it off. And it didn't come off with one pass of a squeegee, but I liked the way that it looked, so I just left it alone. And it has been sitting in my barn for, I don't know, 5 years until this show happened. I was like, I wonder if I could just take that down to that show and pass it off as something good. I do like it though. You know, there's nothing much to hate about it, and so it looks good now that it's up on the wall. I go to sometimes elaborate lengths like this one to try to set up some kind of system for myself to be able to make an image and make an image just the way that I want it, which is kind of the opposite of something like this, where basically 3 days before the opening of this show, there's a painting underneath this painting that I liked, but I was the only person who liked it. It had been in a couple of shows, and I was sick of people seeing it and not liking it. So I put it up on the easel 3 days before this show and said, I'm just going to paint and put stuff on this thing until it's time to pack up the car and bring it to this show. That's just me being honest with you guys. I wanted to see what I could do in 3 days without thinking. And this pile of whatever happened. When it was done though, when I took a photograph of it and looked at it out of context of my studio, I kind of love the crazy energy of this painting. And when I looked at it, you know, when you take a photo of your own work, just for a split second, you see it like as if you were someone else. You know, you see it just enough out of context where you can see it with fresh eyes. And it had these layers that, since I wasn't thinking while I was painting it, I get to discover things just like anybody else. So I just trusted what I knew already, what I had learned over the last 25 years painting every day, that I would trust, not sitting and thinking and making decisions like, what compositionally speaking, what should happen here? I didn't do any of that stuff. I just did one day doing one thing, one day doing it, and then it came out. Cool thing about it, I was just telling you, I put it on the Instagram just to test the waters. You know how when you test, like, wonder, you know, when you have a certain number of likes, you're like, okay, it's good, I'm right. I put this on, and it didn't get like a flood of likes, but somebody contacted me and said, I want to buy that painting. I was like, great, let's do it. So this experiment of doing a 3-day painting without using my brain, I think that I'll be able to remember it because of the sale. I know that sounds like dirty or whatever, but because I'm moving so furiously all the time, just like going from one thing to another, if I can remember this process of just turning my brain off and just dumping out what I already know without thinking and just react and do stuff, I think that I'll have, one, more images because I paint faster that way, and two, maybe more sales, which would mean more paint that I can buy and do bigger projects. It'll buy time so I can do these public sculptures that take the time to build and put out back, and then I'll be able to shop them around and sell stuff, right? These creatures here that are big up there, these B-cycle things, started out as these. I had a big table with paper on it. Whenever I was on the phone, I would talk to whoever was on the phone and doodle on this big table. And then after it got filled up, I would tear it off and put a fresh sheet of paper on it. It was back when the phones had cords on them, you see. So you were sort of trapped when you were talking on the phone. But I would fill up these things with just kind of stream of consciousness drawings. But sometimes they were accidentally good. I would spot them when it was time to clear off the table, and they were cool little objects that I could plug into paintings here or there. The B-cycle image was one of them, and later when I did paintings, if there was an empty spot in a painting and I felt guilty about maybe it being a bad composition or something, I'm sure you teach that stuff. I don't know anything about composition. But if there was an empty spot, I would just put a B-cycle there so that it wouldn't be empty anymore. And then people, after a few shows of these paintings, people would ask about those little creatures, and I would get commissions, and they just wanted those. And then people ask for murals with those things in them, and they've kind of taken a life of their own. But that's where they came from. And I sell them on my website, figuring that I'd sell maybe 6 of them. And it's been every day for 4 years now. I know it's crazy. I don't know what people like about it, but they're neat little things. What else can I talk about? And that leads us to today, where today I am gone from my being parked in front of the TV, absorbing Batman, through Star Wars, through college, and then basically churning out art of all different mediums all day, every day. Most of the stuff is terrible. Some of the stuff is kind of good. And I've managed to cobble together an ability to not have to get a job while I'm doing all this. And that's that. Yeah. So would this be an appropriate time to ask questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do it.
I know I've got some questions. Let me start, because it's usually easier if I start, because they're all
Okay.
scary. So So, just a clarification of a couple of things that you mentioned that are pretty interesting. Moving backwards. So, if you notice, these squares are actually have separate individual squares with each one has a B cycle, as what you call it, right? So a hybrid unicycle bumblebee creature. And you're saying you make these little 3 or 4 inch squares every day. You make one every day. Is that what you do? And then you post that one.
Yes.
So you have this constant every single day.
Yeah, it's the first thing I do in the morning is just start off, everything is set up there in the morning, and I'm sipping coffee and kind of warming up, making an image. It's before my brain has a chance to wake up and get in the way.
Yeah.
And they're all different, and it gives me an opportunity to learn something because I try to do something different to each one each day. And sometimes they work, most of the time they don't, but I can learn stuff. Even from the ones that are bad, something in it might work for something else that I'm doing. So it's really valuable that way, even if I never sold any of them.
And that's something I know I've experienced, and I know that a lot of fellow artists have experienced, is that sitting and thinking and wondering about what you might do never really helps. And doing something stupid is, even if it's stupid, is much more helpful than thinking about what maybe you ought to try.
Yeah, it's something that needs to be reminded apparently a lot, because that's why I said that the fact that some dentist office wanted to give me money for this so that I could buy more materials, it will hopefully be cemented into my brain that that's the way you ought to work. Sitting and thinking about going to coffee shops and like, what should my next work be about? How should I teach these people? It's like I don't have anything to teach to people. Plus, as soon as I make something good, or even if I do make something that's not, the B cycles is just 2 things stuck together. But now it has a life of its own. Like people have applied meanings to it that I never thought of. And when they tell me what they mean, I just agree with them. But that's what it means to them. So my job is to make the thing. And then it's other people's job to decide what it means, decide whether it's good, bad, whatever. So as long as I can remember that my job is just to churn the stuff out, then that's what I love to do. Plus, could be what makes the best thing anyway, right?
I think that's something that people sometimes misunderstand. In that, then so you mean it doesn't mean anything? No, it doesn't mean it doesn't mean anything. It means that it's not you. There's no point if someone says, when I look at this, it makes me think of this. Well, then that's true. If you look at that and it makes you think of a third thing, well, you don't dispute that.
Right. Especially if their thought is better than mine. I'll just say, yeah, you're right.
That's great. So since I have a lot of my students here, I love hearing you talk about how much you work first thing in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I was just talking to my drawing students this morning and reminding them, and this goes for anybody who's thinking about art as more of a career beyond this one, the classes you're in now, is that if you as a student diligently do all the requirements that you're required to do and everything I ask you to do, you're not doing enough, because that's not enough. That's enough to pass a class, and that's enough to graduate, but it's not enough to be an artist. So this idea of waking up first thing in the morning and making something all the time is very. I love hearing that.
Yeah, well, I don't do it because it's my job. I do it because I really love to do it. I love the whole process, especially the process. Like, as a matter of fact, I get kind of sad when the thing is done, like when the painting's finished, because then the fun's over. And I have to immediately jump on something else because it starts that process over again. It doesn't really feel like work to me.
Anybody else? Got a question?
This isn't a question, but I just need you to know that I'm incredibly fond of bees.
I appreciate that.
Do the bees do different activities?
All they do is they either fly that way or that way, and that's it.
Up or down?
No, they don't go up or down either. No, they're pretty predictable.
Now, the ones you make money.
Yeah, that's true. You can.
Really enjoy them.
Well, thank you very much.
In fact, it would be even more interesting if you did like more similar things like that, like take another sort of creature thing and combine it with something. Because I just think that's really endearing.
How about this? We do it, make a deal. I did the bee cycle. You do the lizard cycle or
Talk
whatever.
about it.
Okay. You do that. We'll start a whole movement.
Cool, that'd be great. I was just noticing this house image that you have of this sort of skewed house. You used that on a sculpture that you recently had. What was that?
I don't know. I've done several versions of those, and they're sculptural, three-dimensional in that they come off the wall. And I try to stretch them as far as I can, and I do it all manually. I don't do it in the computer. I do a drawing. I made a house, looked at the house, drew the house, then I took the drawing and laid it down and did a drawing of the drawing at an angle, and then I took that drawing and applied it to wood, cut it out, and then separate it from the wall. Well, the next logical graduation is to make a aggressively skewed house in 3 dimensions, one that you can walk around. So that's what we're working on now, because it's got to be done. Yeah, it's got to be done.
Large scale?
Large scale.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned the challenge of working in sculpture because it's an unwieldy object. It's hard enough. My house is full of paintings, like stuff with paintings. And to have sculptures is even more of a practical issue. But you've been doing it. So have you done some public sculptures?
Yeah. I got, because of the longevity in the art career and my making sculptures for other reasons, whether it be for movie projects or my own still lives, the word had gotten around that I could do sculpture. So I got a public sculpture project that fell into my lap because a public sculptor was trying to retire. Paul D. Pasquale, he made the Neptune sculpture down at the beach, you know, with him holding the sea turtle. It's a really cool sculpture. Anyway, he was on the job, but he didn't want to do it. So he called me and said, you do it. So I said, yes. And I had a big budget, and I got my engineering pal on it with me because he was good with numbers, and he actually had a show here, Tim Harper. Yeah, he's good with math, that guy. So I got him on it, and we made a rainwater harvesting sculpture. It just takes the water from the roof of this school down a gutter, and then it fills up these troughs, and each one gets filled up, it dumps into the other one. But from the road, it looks like clouds with rain squalls coming down. So once we had the first public sculpture under our belt, it's easier to get the next one. So that's what we're trying to do now.
So you're working with him again?
I'm working with Tim again on this other thing that I can tell you about tomorrow. Not literally, the 22nd is tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
That's when I find out if my world is going to be changed for a while. Or tomorrow I'll be depressed. One of the two. Either way, I'll be fixed for life.
Yeah, Tim Harper had a show here, what was it, a year ago? This probably was about a year ago.
Yeah.
And I know some work here, some really genius clockwork things that wind up and were, you saw that, right? All right. You know, technically, and just as a technical thing, I like you working with the tar, that explanation of how you got into working with tar. Was interesting. And you're just working on, like that is actually on drywall. Is that
No, that's a panel, wood panel that I
why was I thinking that?
I don't know. I don't
I
know.
got that idea from something else.
Well, it's white.
Yeah, but so you use the slickness.
I use the slickness of enamel. I use marine enamel. It's the stuff they paint boats with. And it's real shiny, real durable, real slick. And you can put the tar on, you can wipe it off, put the tar on. Like, there's nothing good. Like, this is just the white of the panel here.
So you're, in a way, what you're working with just the bare, in places you're exposing the bare surface to bring light in.
Yeah, it's a little like charcoal,
Mm-hmm.
charcoal drawing that way. And fun and inexpensive.
And again, I'm just to bring it back to the theme I keep hearing, is like, and it just gets you to work. I mean, you get going. You don't need much. You just need.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. When you decide to be a painter, okay, well then you go buy $800 worth of paint, and you got to have an easel, and you have to have a bib. All that stuff costs money, or you can get an $8 bucket of tar and just start slopping it around. And that's what I wanted to do. Yes?
How do you work on that big of a surface on the little tiny surfaces?
The little tiny surfaces originally on this one was because it was at one time a wood grain. There's one, it's portable. I like that. Two, to justify it being portable, which is not a good enough reason to have separate pieces.
Now, how do you do it?
Well, hold on, I'm getting to it. The wood grain, I like the difference in the wood grain and how the wood grain butts up against the next sections, right? And the wood grain is already pretty. This one was like this with a different image, but then I painted over the whole thing to do this one. And you just do this like you would do any painting. If you're talking about the scale, it's not all that high. Just get on a step ladder or something and paint it
So
like
you
that.
didn't do it on like you didn't do it piece by piece by piece?
No. No, I just hung it up on my easel just like that. And I am doing one piece by piece by piece coming up. I have a big 10 by 40 foot commission for a Richmond company, and they were supposed to have gotten it started by way of paying me the first installment before the fall so that I could do it before it got cold. But now it's getting cold, and they just gave me the first installment yesterday, so I'm starting it now. So as a result, I'm having to do it one panel at a time. So it's sort of like this, where I'm going to do one panel at my warm studio and just hope for the best and hope that they line up in the end. And I've not done that exactly before, but it seems kind of fun. It seems like self-collaboration a little bit, where I'm kind of rolling the dice and hoping for the best, but something cool could come out of it. Besides, they've already paid me for it, right?
So, but it does bring up the issue that, like, not everybody has an easel that big. So you have a place to work. You have carved out for yourself a place to work that will allow that allow you to work on something that large all at once.
It's true. One of the money that I saved by using tar in the beginning, I built. I thought you were supposed to have an easel. Turns out you don't have to have an easel. You could have a wall.
Yeah.
Wall's fine. Behind your walls at home, there's 2x4s every 16 inches, hopefully, and you could just put a nail and just hang whatever on it. And it doesn't have to be a $500 easel that you have downstairs. But I built when I was 22, I built my easel, and it was 24 feet wide, and it was 4 by 8 sheets, And then I made a wall behind it, but I made the wall tilted a little bit, which is kind of unnecessary. But at 22, it's like, well, an easel is supposed to be tilted, so I have to tilt it. It's not necessary to do that, but that's what I did. But it's the same easel that I've had since I was 22. I just built them all in one day, and it was, I don't know, $300 in materials, and I've just moved it 8 or 10 times, and it comes apart. And
it's kind of pictured in your.
this is part of it here. You can see the studs coming down. The studs down at the bottom, I knew I didn't need a wall there, so I lifted it up, and my feet can go down in the bottom. Yeah. Makes sense? So you can build one.
Looking at these pieces, what's the how are they finished? And
Those
all
were
that?
the first
Are they on
ones.
wood?
These are on wood. They're the first ones that I think I ever did, and I did them. There's like paper. I did them on paper and stuck them on there. And then what I used to do, this is kind of interesting for students, and it's a good idea. What I used to do is make these things that I call trenches, which is I get 1x4 wood, and then I would do images all down the wood. I would put gesso on them, and I would do a different image, or the same image. I would paint a bird, paint another bird, another bird, another bird, another bird. And then early on, I would build these little walls on the sides, and then I would pour material down in them, like varnish on one, shellac on another, wax on one. And I would, if I did like 20 squares would fit on one 8-foot piece of lumber, and I would get like 10 of them. So I'd have all these different options. And if some of them worked, great. Some of them didn't, who cares, because I already had the other ones. And then I would cut them up, and the result was these separate images that were all different. It's a great way to learn how to do stuff. It's a great way to learn what materials will do. And if you make 400 of them, and 100 of them are terrible, who cares? You have 300. Yeah. So that's how those came about, and I would recommend that for any student who wanted to quickly learn how to use materials.
That's great. That's a great idea. Others questions? Yes, I do.
So right here, when you made the clouds, did you use stencils or was it pre-painted?
Those I just painted them. Trick to clouds is you paint them dark first, and then lighten it up and scumble it. Have you guys learned scumbling?
I haven't really talked about that.
And then lighten that color up and scumble that some more, and then all of a sudden you have clouds. I teach a cloud painting workshop in Richmond too. I do. It's once you get it, you're like, oh yeah, that's easy. So that's what I do, is paint them like that. Yes, sir?
How do you make the perfect circles and then find the center of them?
Well, I didn't find the center of them necessarily. If you make some measurements, they're likely to be off. The big ones, you just, like if you do this, it's a circle. You have the
One
pivot
would think.
here. They can be wonky. The big one there, I know that's not a real circle. It couldn't be. There's no. I think it's squashy. I just screwed it up. It's
You got a lot
probably
of circles in the little ones.
The little ones.
the little ones. Those are, once you get to, there's only one way to do a correct circle. If it's right, it's right. If it's not right, then it's got to go. Right?
I don't know, but they look pretty good.
Then they must be right. Any other questions?
You said you did you have a question? You said you did this. I think it's pretty remarkable. You did that entire painting in 3 days. But those were long days of painting all day.
Not really.
I
It's.
just want to know how hard you work for the show.
Is it still
How much effort you put in.
I put in.
Find out.
I'll remember it. I'll remember this one, I hope, for a long time, because it'll be the painting that I learned how to dump everything I know into one 3 half-day session. It was a little like painting a mural. Painting murals for me, once I get the mural job and I kind of know what I'm going to do, I try to finish it as quickly as possible. And that's the thought that I applied to this. You know, when you're doing murals, you're kind of performing. You can't do a whole lot of experimenting out in public. You have to kind of, yeah. So in the studio, I just experiment. And if something happens that's good, great. This one was a combination of those things, and I'm excited about the result. So thank you for that opportunity.
So, and if you are not aware, Richmond has a very active mural scene. There's a lot of great murals in Richmond, and a lot of artists working. We're going to actually have another Richmond artist, Nico Caprari. She is also a very prolific muralist in Richmond. So that'll be, I think, next April or March. And so that'll be interesting to have her come here. And you know, I don't want to ask you to explain the whole mural process in Richmond, but that is a very vibrant community that's really active. So that's so now it's kind of painted up again.
Is it from oil paint?
Is that
This is oil paint, there's tar, there's enamel, there's
Was it
aluminum
wet when you
roof.
bought it from Richmond?
No, I used, the enamels dry pretty quickly. It's actually why I switched to enamel on top of the oil, because I knew that the oil wouldn't dry quick enough. The enamel will dry in about 12 hours. So I broke all my own self-imposed rules with this one. So it'll probably peel off the wall after it's installed at that dentist office.
Yeah, so you do have to be careful, you know, combining mediums, but one of the things to keep in mind, I think, as long as all the mediums are soluble in the same material, so all of those things are oil soluble or turpentine soluble.
Yeah, and you don't want to put water-based on top of
That's
that,
okay.
which I did not do here.
No, so the point, I'm just trying to clarify the point that, like, some, you get to know your materials, and some materials you can mix like that, but you can't mix other combinations, like you wouldn't want to mix acrylic paint in that mix would be no good.
Right.
Or watercolor, where, unless so you have to do a little bit of research. I mean,
The best research is trying it and seeing what happens.
see what happens.
That's how I learn most stuff.
Because yeah.
And you had a question?
No.
Yes?
How often do you collaborate with other artists?
As often as possible. I love doing it because other people think of things that I didn't, or they think of things differently than I was thinking about it, and it helps me get out of any potential rut that I might be in, where I'm thinking in a circle. They can jerk me out of that circle.
Question. Any of this is shown, like any of that you painted records, any of it like that's shown from the paint before, or is it all?
I think I successfully covered all of it. That's a good question, though. It looked completely different. It was painting a river, and there was a bridge in it, and it's probably still on my website somewhere.
How do you get scale properly when you're drawing on a big surface like a mural? In other words, so that the last part of it doesn't dwarf the first part, or however, so they stay the same scale. Do you have a sort of a plan of it's got to go
With-
PVC and?
With murals, there's usually a plan, because a lot of times murals come about by way of commission, or you have to show them what you're going to do. And as soon as they clap eyes on it, then I feel like I'm obligated to kind of do it like that. So if I have a little drawing that's this big, and then if I back up far enough, that wall will be this big. And I just kind of mimic what I did there. And you work, it sounds like I'm being funny, but you just work bigger. You use big brush. And
Do you use techniques like a grid?
I have used a grid. I used a grid twice, and then twice I used a projector with a couple things. Otherwise, I just wing it because something always goes wrong with the projector, or you get there at night and everything's closed, so there's no place to plug it in. So relying on a projector is, for me, kind of a nuisance. And then the grid itself takes a time to do. There's other tricks there's even apps now that help you with a grid. You can make your own grid. I don't know what the app is called, but some people, when they do them really big, they go up on the wall and just make silly marks all over the place. And then they take a picture of that, and then the app will put that image over the image that they want to duplicate. So instead of making a straight grid, they just invent a grid.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It is kind of cool.
That's brilliant, yeah. Because then you don't have to measure, your grids don't have to be carefully constructed.
Right, because it can throw off everything. So this is a real-time grid. And I haven't done that yet, but I'd like to, but I don't know what the app is called. And these competitive mural guys, they won't tell you. Yeah, you got to earn it.
That's like secret.
Yeah.
But also, I think that that winging it, like you said, keeps the energy level up.
I think so, and there's also new opportunities that come about while you're working, and you don't want to lose the opportunity to make it more interesting or better when you have to, it's like, well, this would be way better, but I have to do a duplicate of this silly drawing I did on a napkin.
Right.
So I like to keep those options open.
As long as you're not totally changing the subject matter of it.
The thing about changing that is it's just paint. You can just paint over it.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world.
That's another great lesson for students.
Yeah, you can just fix it. It's
Paint
no
over it.
big deal.
Change it. Yeah. Just put it down, and then you don't like it.
Yeah, especially if painting's in the studio. You just toss that one aside and get another one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite subject to paint? Because this is like bees on unicycles, and then there's like everyday stuff, like typewriter.
I don't know that I have although I do like painting clouds quite a bit. As soon as you think that you have a formula for a cloud, you see a sunset or something, it's like, well, that's stupid. Why is there purple right next to yellow ochre there? You've seen, I've never tried it before. So I feel like painting clouds is like painting just an abstract, doing an abstract. Also, sometimes when I try to paint clouds, like I want to do morning clouds, it turns into day during the painting somehow, just because that's the path that the painting took. So I think clouds. My default way of starting a painting is just painting clouds, and if something comes to mind, it's what happened here. You can see that big white explosion in the back.
Resemble clouds, because even like the trees kind of remind me of
Yeah.
clouds with fluffiness.
Yeah, they look like green cloud puffs.
And there's like clouds of like dust and stuff
Mhm.
too.
Yeah, so clouds
Yeah.
is my short answer.
I wouldn't have noticed beforehand.
Well, good. It was a good question.
And also, I think that a thing that is often not recognized is that, in a way, a lot of what you've said has to do with how much you like the process. You just do it. And so the subject matter, like for a lot of artists, the subject matter is the paramount and I'll just do whatever I need to do to get that subject matter done. But, and for those artists, process is less important. And then I feel like from what you described, it's like getting in there and getting started is more important than what the image is of.
I feel like by way of the process, the subject matter will come about. And that subject matter is usually a better idea than I would have had. So I always opt to give the process a chance to make something more interesting than I would have thought of.
And intuitive connections that bubble up that you wouldn't have made consciously.
Right.
So, and it's not like the way everyone has to work, but it's an interesting way to work. It's a different way to work than what a lot of people often think, which is I have to decide what it is I'm trying to say, and then just sort of follow this language and say.
Right.
That.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good.
Would you have any tips for like going out to like experimenting, like to find your own style? Because I see that you've done realism and then you have like something that's completely different. I'm just wondering like how you went about changing that completely.
Well, the way that I change it completely is by way of the process. You know, this one, because the wood grain is pretty, I just wanted to keep that. So I had to prepare the image ahead of time, which meant doing drawings. And then once I got the drawing that I wanted, I transferred that onto the wood panels, taped the whole thing, cut out the image, painted the image, and then pulled all the tape off. So, but this one, you know, the stylistic difference, even though they, you know, could have been done on the same day, the process from the beginning was very different. I just started slopping paint. And so this one developed like it did, and this one developed like it did. And then when you switch gears and go this way, because I wanted to depict the artist studios as it is, without putting any of me in it, I had to depict them as close as I could to exactly the way that it was. So that process directed that style. But having that sheet of paper on my telephone table, being able to do drawings that weren't going to be judged or graded or seen by anybody is a really fast track also to find out what it is that you do when no one's looking. And then you can pluck out the things that you like or are useful, not that are good, but just useful to you, and then put them into your other work.
And that sounds like, going back to my refrain of like, do a lot.
Yeah.
Do a lot. Fill up an entire table with drawings, and then tear it off and fill it again with drawings.
Yeah.
And fill it again with drawings. Do a lot.
Whatever it is you're into, whether it's drawing, draw all the time.
Yeah.
If you want to do paintings, paint all the time. Photographer, carry your camera with you all the time. That's how you get it. Soccer, you always kicking a ball around and stuff, right? That's how you get good at stuff. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here, and thanks for your questions, and thanks to Matt Lively.
Thanks for having me.